What's up, guys? If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Also, please smash that like button on the video and enjoy the show.
You know, getting into an espionage book, there's so many sort of rabbit holes that you can go down, and it's a bit of a mind fuck, really. And you don't know what's real and what isn't real. And it's, you know, the old wilderness of mirrors.
Well, you said you started with like 5,000 documents, something like that,
Yeah.
4,000 or 5,000 documents, and they're all 100-page or hundreds of pages long. What was the most common type of document you were reviewing? Like individual case files, communications internally that have been declassified? What types of things were in there? You're good. Don't worry about it.
Mostly they were interrogation reports of Nazis who had been interviewed after the end of the war. And it was a real struggle, really, I guess, to find the information I was looking for, because so many of these files are, you know, very faded, hardly legible. It's not like you can sort of run sort of a software program and get it to,
Right.
copy the text in the document. You actually have to read the thing yourself and type it out yourself. And you know, I'm looking for any kind of mention of Ellis in all of these hundreds of interrogation reports of these Nazis. And there was one that I had to pay for. I actually had to spend £200. It was one that hadn't been digitized. So I'm literally paying £200. What's that in American dollars? You know,
Fairly similar. Yeah. Right now, the pound trades for more, right? Yeah. I haven't looked at that in a while. I'm not on Wall Street anymore.
you know, a lot of money, like $300 American
Yeah.
or something, right? For this 200-page file about this guy called Vladimir von Petrov, who was this Chilean German agent who was interrogated in Santiago in 1956. And supposedly, you know, Dick Ellis was mentioned in this file, and it's all in Spanish. And
Oh, so you got it translated too.
oh no, but there was no mention of Ellison in it whatsoever, except for one page where someone had written in pen.
Can you get your money back for that?
Written in pen, Ellis, ? And that was it, right? So there was nothing in this entire thing. It was like, oh, shit, you know, that was a bit of a waste of money. But you know, this is the nature of what you're doing. You're just trying to piece together this guy's life.
You're chasing a ghost in a lot of ways.
Yes. And so, you know, Dick Ellis made this massive contribution to Western intelligence, particularly in the early 1940s when he came to New York, when he wrote the blueprint for the OSS, what became the CIA.
Yeah, this is the mindfuck part. If you don't mind, I'd really like to dig into this.
Yeah.
Like, you were telling me before, if I understood this correctly, this was right before we went on camera, that Britain had an office, I forget what it was called, in the United States in New York City that was essentially to try to get America into the war. I guess this is in like the late 30s, like 39, 40, something like that.
1940, 41, 42. So, and it sort of ran through to, it kind of sort of disbanded really after Pearl Harbor happened. And Dick Ellis is important in regard to Pearl Harbor.
Oh, really?
Yes. So, and this is probably the biggest bit of dynamite in the book, really, that, you know, Ellis came out. He was the deputy to William Stevenson at British Security Coordination, which was this MI6 agency that had been set up in New York, essentially to get the United States into the war. It was basically monitoring sort of Nazi activity in the United States, you know, sort of pumping out its own propaganda and so on. But the raison d'etre of this organization was to get the United States into the war. Right, and there was an agent. I don't know if you've heard of him, called Dusko Popov.
Yeah, like the Popov's mole thing that John Newman talks about, I think, Alessi. Yeah.
Popov has been sort of held up as the model for James Bond. He was this sort of Serbian playboy
Can you just stay like
Sorry.
this just because the camera's here?
Sorry, he was this Serbian. There we are, Dusko Popov. You know, he's regarded as the main sort of inspiration for James Bond. And Popov was a German agent, but he was also working for the British. And Popov came to the United States, and he had been requested to find out information about Pearl Harbor for the Germans, for the German intelligence service, basically on behalf of the Japanese. So the Japanese were interested in Pearl Harbor. So his job was to come to the United States, gather as much information about Pearl Harbor as possible. This was like in so December 1941 was Pearl Harbor, right? December the 7th.
Yep.
Right. Popov came to New York in August 1941. He had a meeting with Dick Ellis and some guys from the FBI here in New York City, and said, "Look, here is this questionnaire that I've been given by German intelligence. They want specific information about Pearl Harbor. I'm telling you that there's going to be an attack on Pearl Harbor."
Holy shit!
Yes, and this is quite a well-known thing, and I'm actually shocked that more people don't actually look into this stuff, and that this sort of myth that the Americans didn't know about it sort of continues to this day, and that FDR didn't know anything about it, because from what I read and from what Ellis said, FDR was warned, right, as early as August 1941. Right, so Popov came to New York. He had this meeting with Dick Ellis, who he was his minder here in New York.
His minder?
His minder, like, just the guy to hang out with and show him around and, pick him up at the hotel and so on. And these guys from the FBI, right? And he essentially said, "Look, this is the questionnaire. This is something that you should be looking into, and you should be very concerned about it." And then supposedly, and this has always sort of been denied by various people sort of who cling to this idea that that the Americans didn't know about Pearl Harbor, but that sorry. Sorry. That Popov had a meeting with Hoover, right?
Directly with him.
Directly, and that this has been denied, but Popov wrote in his autobiography that he had a meeting with Hoover, that he sort of warned him about Pearl Harbor, and Hoover ejected Popov from this meeting and said, "Piss off! I don't want to have anything to do with you. Just get out." And so Popov writes about this in his autobiography. It's a well-known story, and that that the story goes that FDR, that Hoover knew nothing about Pearl Harbor before it happened, right? But Popov maintained in his autobiography that the Americans were warned, that they knew about it, and that they chose to do nothing. So what was interesting to me in the course of researching this book was that I came across a transcript of an interview that Dick Ellis had done with a Canadian documentary crew back in the 70s, when they were thinking about doing a documentary about the life of William Stevenson, a man called Intrepid. And
he was the head of the desk in New York for Britain.
He was the head of the British Security Coordination.
Right.
And Stevenson is regarded as a war hero in Canada and the United States. There's parks named after him in Canada, and he's regarded as a national hero in Canada. And anyway, Ellis was interviewed by this program about Stevenson, and he was asked about Pearl Harbor, and he said that yes, that the Americans were warned that Stevenson warned FDR that Ellis and Stevenson together had basically got a message to the President of the United States through his brother, Jimmy Roosevelt. Jimmy Roosevelt. Can you just get that up?
Okay, can we look that up, Alessi? So there was some sort of message that went through him, so it didn't go directly.
Sorry, so not his brother, his son.
James.
Jimmy Roosevelt.
This one? No.
Or would it have been... Who was the other...
Yeah, there we go. Franklin D. Roosevelt.
This is the right
son.
guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
That a message had got to a message had got to the president through Jimmy Roosevelt that Pearl Harbor was going to be attacked. Now, I don't know exactly why it had to go through Jimmy Roosevelt, but the substance of what Ellis was saying was that we got a message to FDR that Pearl Harbor was going to be attacked, right? So that's separate to the warning that Popov gave Hoover.
So multiple streams.
Multiple streams, right? So this is confirmation that Ellis and Stevenson had got a message to the President of the United States, right? So that goes against the prevailing narrative that the Americans knew nothing about it.
Question. Could there have been... You know, in these worlds, obviously, a lot of information flows where there's information that's purposely sent to beat disinformation, to draw people offside or things like that. Could there have been some sort of situation like that, given that there were so many potential targets that could have been attacked in the United States in something like this?
And that's a valid interpretation because that's probably what Hoover thought of Dusko Popov. He's like, well, why should I trust anything that you're telling me? You work for the Germans, right? While you're also working for the British. But, you know, you could be a Nazi spy and I don't know any better. So get out of my fucking office, right? Which is essentially what Hoover said to Popov, right? But if Ellis and William Stevenson were independently warning the President of the United States that there was going to be an attack on Pearl Harbor, that's a different matter entirely. Because Ellis and Stevenson were well respected in Washington. You know, they were you know, operating at the highest levels of the the United States intelligence security apparatus at that time.
What year did Ellis arrive in the United States?
1940.
Okay. And he went right to work for this office in New York.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.